it is said that St Cecilia had given her virginity to another. And of course, Valerian wanted to know who this was. It was the Lord. And he wanted to see her friend. And she is said to have answered that if he sought baptism, he would see him. Whatever happened on the mystical level, he did become a Christian and eventually a martyr, and he respected her wish to keep her virginity. But this part of the legend, the hearing of the song of the angels on her wedding night, has gone down and is responsible for her being the patron saint of music. She certainly existed, and the veneration given to her, it goes back to the early church. Her name is in the Roman canon to this day. And the names also are of historic persons. Through the influence of Valerian, his brother Tiburtius was also converted and became a martyr. So 3 martyrs are remembered on this feast. And the whole sequence of events with regard to the importance of Cecilia for liturgy and beauty in the house of God. St Augustine preaches on the way in which chant is the language of love. Lovers sing spontaneously. When my brother was very young, and my sister-in-law even younger, when they were courting, I happened to overhear them singing together, spontaneously, a duet. It's been a very happy 50 years and more since then, a true marriage of soul, and they can still well sing together and produce beauty. Harmony, therefore, an expression of harmony of soul. And that harmony we find in our worship. St Augustine goes on to explain how song contains the overflowing of words. What words cannot express, the jubilation of song tries to. And this gives rise to the expression, the jubilus. That's the part of the neume, the succession of neumes that follow the Alleluia in the initial part. It goes on into a long ah. For instance, Alleluia, and then it goes on. That part there is the jubilus, and it's the overflowing of the word. We're just happy to create beauty. And I found that coming to Italy when I was transferred from Ireland there in the 90s, the mid-90s. It was in 1995 they arrived at Sant'Antimo and encountered this beautiful chant, Young Voices. They had just produced, actually when I got there, their first CD and cassette. And the title they gave to it came from the sermon that the Archbishop of Siena had preached when he heard the beauty of the chant. He had been responsible with his predecessor for getting them into that monastery, and the foundation was Episcopal. And he preached, hearing the Gregorian chant, unaccompanied as it should be, echoing up to the rafters and back. He said, "The stones are singing." And that became the title of the CD, the first one of quite a few. Pietra che canta. And when we were singing what we had received from bygone monks. The monastery actually was founded in 781 by Charlemagne. And he, of course, was the one who standardized things in the Holy Roman Empire, getting an authentic codex from Monte Cassino of the rule of St Benedict and making the Benedictine life the standard one. And it was Benedictine, therefore. And we had taken the chant of Salem in our books, and the brethren, the cantors, would be in contact with the French schools so as to get the best possible. This then was what we were breathing in, a very pure air, timeless. And one became aware that the frontier was very thin between heaven and earth, which one finds here also in the chapel. In Wales, I was aware of something of that even as a child, because when seeing the organist pull out the stops and hearing the congregation going to four-part harmony and feeling the chapel vibrate, I could feel something of home, homeward bound, I wish I was, home where the music's playing. Music is the art of the muses, musicae techne. And so it's a power that we have, which even the ancients were aware of. Those who were before Christian times calculating the link between arithmetic and music. Pythagoras and so on, they were very much aware that there was an order in things. And music was seen and is seen as the language of beauty. And harmony has its own laws and rules. And by the way, not that far from us in time, even the likes of John Lennon and Paul McCartney were aware of certain things, because those three, John Lennon, Paul McCartney and George Harrison, were able to produce harmony, and quite difficult harmony at times. And it works because they are following the rules. Now we've gone into modern music which does not have much of that. It's based on other factors, and we have gone down in civilization. We're not able, it seems, to create the same beauty as those who went before us. Not that far back in time. It's easy, relatively, to be an expert in techniques, I mean electronic techniques. It's not so easy to be somebody who can create with just the voice things that function, because they're following higher laws. We too, at Sant'Antimo, were not using anything artificial. It was just doing what had been done before and before and before. And it worked. It was based on what always worked. That too, when I was a young Protestant, was what I found. We were part of something greater. Centuries of Welsh poetry, music, and bardic tradition. It had worked, it still worked, and it still does today. At Taizé we were a bus full of young Welsh people, and we did the same in the crypt. We just went into harmony. Let us reclaim our heritage, which we have in common with the angels. That's one thing we have not lost from Eden, the power to create beauty for our King. Sant'Antimo, because of the fact that we were doing something given to us by other generations, there was a certain humility in the chant. To applaud or to seek glory is to co-incarnate the purity of praise, which has to be gratuitous. It was also something which worked as regards healing the soul, and people were aware of it and would come from miles to be part of it. Why are there so few places on earth where it still happens? Why are we content to be short-changed? Content to have the functional? Does everything have to be understood? Blaise Pascal, the French philosopher, has this one-liner: Le cœur a ses raisons que la raison ne connaît pas. The heart has its reasons, but the reason does not know. Behold how pleasant it is, says the chant, brothers living in unity, a band of brethren creating beauty together is very close to what happens among the choirs that we cannot see, and those choirs are very close to us in praise. This morning I was preaching here at the 7 o'clock Mass on St Cecilia and how the chant of the angels had been heard on the wedding night. After Holy Mass I was making my thanksgiving in the other chapel, and somebody came from the chapel and said that something had happened at that very point in chapel. The little white flowers, and only those little white flowers, not the other flowers, were dancing, and we understood that the angels were pushing them as they danced. The frontier was very, very thin. And so it is that when we create the same thing as they do, we have that one thing that we have not lost from Eden in common with our angelic friends: the language of beauty, music. It is our heritage. Let us claim it, lest we be an impoverished race. Mischief in chapel. We play with angels while we sing a song before the throne that we see not as they. And little friends to one same King belong, and prattle without noise upon this way that leads us home to them. We are alone in ne'er an hour on earth, where mirth we share with little ones that dance on clouds their own, that are not far away. for heaven is there. Oh, little imps, your mischief is so sweet, and tiny feet are happy here to play with petals small that call an angel beat on high Cecilia's day, where melody is shared by man and cherub. Naughtily